Yesterday I said that if I felt like it, I'm gonna review We the People X More Than a Vote from Fortnite, and this is precisely what I'm gonna be doing today. From the whole thing, there are several points that do stand as points, but honestly I would have cut down the whole thing to about 10 minutes with only a few key people, because a lot of this is complete and total drivel. Some guests from the show has brought absolutely nothing to the table. Other guests have very dubious and questionable points. I am gonna go through all of it. I am using footage that somebody filmed from Fortnite because I feel like this is more representative of the whole experience, and I already put down my talking points with exact seconds to this video, but I am gonna be linking the video in itself as uploaded by Fortnite's channel about 2 days ago. So you don't need to watch somebody else watching the event live, you can just watch the video that they uploaded. But once again, the seconds don't match up, so it's actually better for me to use the Fortnite video than the regular video. So first of the guests that talked in this whole thing was Bun B. I don't know who Bun B is, but I am pretty sure that the show introduced him, beat you over the head with his profession as well. I am just not very good with people that I do not know, and I do not know and do not follow Bun B. Therefore, to me, it's just like, suppose a guy didn't want to use his real name in this serious thing and wanted to go by some sort of pseudonym. Okay, that would be like me going on TV and calling myself Mirta. Kind of weird. So he had a couple of talking points, and they're honestly kind of what I expected, and they're not very good. So first of all, his first concern is prisoners not having voting rights, and that is suppressing the black community. He talks about this a little bit, about how if you're not convicted yet, you still have the right to vote.
Over the country, if you're in jail currently, during pre-trial, but you have not been convicted, like you're still in jail waiting for your day in court, you are still eligible to vote.
And you said something so key. They work so hard to hope that we stay uninformed, but more importantly, to suppress the black vote.
To me, these kind of statements come off as really, really racist. Like, you are just expecting a majority of black people to be in jails and in the criminal system, and I don't know why. I feel like that is putting a whole race down. I feel like you shouldn't focus on that. Yes, criminals cannot vote until you're past your parole. That is because you are likely to vote. Your vote is not going to be very trustworthy. You're likely to vote for whoever is going to promise you freedom rather than anything else, because that is what you most want in life, and society wouldn't benefit from all criminals going free. Which brings us to our next talking point, which is precisely once again what I expected from a show like this. You are supposed to bring in people that are open to defund the police. That is their whole point. They're like, defunding the police is a good thing because majority of black people are criminals and majority of black people are in prisons. Therefore, you don't want law enforcement and you don't want prisons. Vote it out of the system.
If the people in your city are not open to police reform, are not open to having a conversation about defunding the police, are not open to issues concerning economic equality, judicial equality, and racial equality, right? If they're scared to say Black Lives Matter, you have the power to put people in those positions who do believe that Black Lives matter.
Black lives do matter, but they do not matter more than having law enforcement. I am very sorry, but if my area was deciding to get rid of law enforcement, I would be deciding to leave that area. Then his last point was the fact that we should be educating people on defunding the police.
All right, so most people, when they hear the term defund the police, they tend to think of, oh, they're going to take away our police department. Nothing could be further from the point. Defunding the police means that in certain communities, even Houston, take for example, we had over $1 billion allocated to our police force. Now, what is that money being used for? Some of that money tends to be allocated towards riot shields, right? Pepper spray, right? That kind of thing. That's only used against the people that fund this budget, right?
Well, you see, most of the people that fund this budget are not criminals and they're not partaking in riots where they might need to use pepper spray because you dumbasses are throwing grenades at them. Like, I am sorry, but I want the police to be equipped in order to be able to deal with these kind of situations and deal with these kind of lawless goons. So yes, I am pretty sure that they require to have equipment. Plus, riot shields are not only used for riots. Riot shields are used for, well, very intense situations against armed individuals. For example, if somebody was holding a hostage while being heavily armed, chances are police would be entering with a riot shield. Chances are they would be summoning a SWAT team, if anything. There's not gonna be just your regular average cop that might give you a ticket for speeding. It will be a person equipped to deal with this kind of situation. That is why they have riot shields allocated in that budget. So yeah, you are saying that defunding the police means defunding the police and that we should not have riot shields and pepper spray to control large lawless crowds that are currently setting America on fire. I don't see how that is a good idea. I don't see why you're trying to give this propaganda to children in a children's game, mostly played by children. Is your hope that they're gonna go home and repeat this whole spiel to their mommy and daddy? Because their mommy and daddy are the ones with the voting rights. And their mommy and daddy hopefully know a tiny bit more about life than the little kiddo listening to this going, oh, this isn't right. Because the mommy and daddy are in the real world and not in Fortnite. Now, the next segment is a woman called Yvonne Orgy. I think that's her name. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name right because it sounds really lewd. And she just went on a complete tirade that had absolutely no point. She was one of the guests that could have been completely cut. But her statements were so funny that I kind of let them in. There were a few guests, like 2 guests, that I could literally just sum up with a sentence where I didn't even need to leave them. I left Yvonne because Yvonne sounds like she is ranting and rambling things that could be used against their cause rather than pro it.
I think, well, one, we're not minorities, Carrie. You already know it. It's like these labels that they put on us. It's like the same way of saying like
minorities are not a thing. We are not a minority. Okay, in that case, you don't need your special rights and privileges and protections. You are apparently the majority. If you're not a minority, who do you think you are? Do you think you're in the majority of the United States? If you are in the majority of the United States, then by some lawful definitions, it is the white people that are supposed to be getting the protections, not you. Therefore, that goes completely contrary against your cause.
black on black violence. Also, there's no white on white violence. It's branding.
Yeah,
right? It's all branding.
Black on black violence is not a thing. I am pretty sure that the Department for Crime is tracking all sorts of race X race violence. They have those numbers. That's what they do. They do graphs, they do statistics. So yes, white on white violence is a thing, but so is black on black violence, lady. What are you even talking about? And that was like her whole segment. The next thing that she said is she described a completely normal day for majority of people and called it racist.
To enable you to go vote. Think about everything disenfranchised, marginalized Black person has to endure in a day. So in a day, you need to get to work. If something happens to your car, if something happens to your childcare, if something happens to, there's so many factors along the way that can send you into a tailspin. As
the same with everyone's day, lady. This isn't exclusive to Black people. Do you think white people are sitting on their asses without jobs? Do you think most white people don't need to earn a living? Like, what kind of statement is that? We all have jobs. We all need to take our children to childcare because we cannot afford to have a parent stay at home. All of our cars can get broken. This isn't like some universe collaboration against Black people. So yes, this is pretty normal. This is average day-to-day life that you need to deal with as an adult. What kind of rant is this? And then She says that black people are being oppressed by capitalism, which was just such an out there thought for me.
If we haven't been broken now through, be it through slavery, through capitalism,
give it to me. Give it to
We're broken through capitalism. We don't like when companies get to compete and they're not privatized by the government. We don't like when the government doesn't assign us our work positions. Now, if you want to know where I stand on that whole issue is, I think that you need some regulation from the government, but at the same time, I wouldn't be pro-government privatizing and owning all property and all companies, which is what communism is, because this is how you kill competition, this is how you kill innovation. You don't need multiple amounts of cars if everyone is issued the exact same model to drive. You don't need personal choice when your government tells you where you work. And yes, you do have to work. They force you to work. You work from birth to death for your government because your government needs you in that specific position and you don't have a say. That is what communism is. Communism is your government controlling your life. Oh, and if they don't like you, they're just gonna kick you out of your apartment. If they don't like you, they're just gonna take away your car, take away your freedom, or take away your life, or take away your family, because everything would be tied and controlled by the government. That is communism. Capitalism is companies being free to compete without intervention from the government. Perfect system is when you have some social catch-all situations where the government has some money set aside for unemployed people, has some money set aside for elderly, has some security for their people, but they don't own everything that people can themselves own, because at that point they can just, well, yoink it away the moment they don't like you. And revolutionaries like you always die first. Because they don't need a revolutionary. They need somebody that is scared enough to just do as they say. That is what communism is. That is the experience of communism from countries that already had communism. So I am sorry capitalism is oppressing you. How? They don't tell you where to work. They don't tell you what you can and cannot be. You are free to reach for the stars. You are as good as your merits are. Are you telling me that you're just not good at anything? Is that it? Is the world too competitive for you? I understand, because there are a limited amount of jobs and a lot of people, and we're all struggling. And we're all struggling to assert our own rights as workers and to make sure that our wages match our living expenses. But how are you? I don't understand. I don't understand how you can be oppressed by a system like that. Are you for the opposite system? Because no, the opposite system is a lot worse. The opposite system is actual oppression. But okay, so that was Yvonne Orgy, everybody. Now, the next person that comes along is a guy called Russ, which is apparently a hip-hop artist. He feels guilty about being white and will not involve himself in anything. He'll just give money to black people. He also dedicated 10 minutes to give you this message, to also tell you to dedicate all of your money to black people. That was his segment. He could have been cut out of the show and not a single thing would have been lost. Jason Hayward took forever to get to a point, but he actually arrived at a point, and I am bloody impressed with that man for actually having a point. If this whole segment was just dedicated to him and explaining the issues that he has faced, it would have been a legitimate segment. It would have been a legitimate documentary that you could air somewhere, preferably not in Fortnite, because Fortnite is just not a location for this.
Well, I feel like in Atlanta, they're on the move. So when you want to try to make a vote and try and cast your vote, you have to do it by mail. You have to sign up for the absentee ballot. Then you have to get another ballot in return. They have to send it back to you. Well, for me personally, they didn't send that back until it was too late, right? We didn't get it in the mail to the address that's an Atlanta address at my parents' house. We didn't get that in the mail until it was too late. And then from other friends and family that are still in Georgia right now, I just hear about them being held in lines too long and trying to get off work.
Now, what he talks about in this whole segment, first of all, he signed up to vote. He sent out his ballot in time, and he didn't receive the ballot and permission to vote in time to vote, which is obviously bureaucracy going wrong, which is obviously probably a lot more than just him have experienced this. Probably a lot more votes than just his have been lost. It's not necessarily about skin color. But definitely you have an event here which is effectively voter suppression because your bureaucracy have put you down. Your bureaucracy made sure that you cannot vote in time, therefore your vote is never cast. He also talks about the fact that there were locations that closed at 6 p.m., which is hundreds of people still waiting in line because it took a while for people to get off work and it took a while for people to get to the location to cast a vote. The location was probably set to close at 6 p.m., but that is also not right because you're cutting a whole bunch of people from being able to cast a vote. People started banging on the windows and they reopened the location and they did get to cast their vote. This is something that could actually be seen as an issue. This is something that could actually be seen as something to actually talk about. And it comes in 41 minutes and 25 seconds into a 57-minute video. That is how long they get to having a point. Then we have Jalen Rose, and I'm pretty sure that we were interviewing Jalen Rose from some sort of taxi with really, really bad audio. He has said some pretty interesting stuff himself, such as the fact that having jobs is racist and needing to know who you vote for before you go out voting is a problem.
More than a vote. There is a Black collective of athletes, of artists coming together and saying voter suppression is a real deal, especially in the Black community. When you just talked about, I got to work, so I can't go vote. And then when we do get in the booth, just in case we don't have to work, do we know who we're voting for? And I don't.
Yeah, that's basic competency. Now you're making it sound like Black people are too uneducated and stupid in order to know who they are voting for before they get to the ballot. Like, they just get this thought in their head of, I need to be part of change, I need to change this. Then they get to the ballot and go, what do? I guess I put a next to one of these candidates. This one. I did my part, and fuck off. I mean, yeah, there are people like that, but you are now painting a whole demographic as too dumb. Too dumb because you are raising knowing who you're electing as an issue. Yeah, that applies to everyone with full rights and the ability to vote. That applies to any human being. You need to know who you are voting for before you cast a vote. If that is racist, then are you trying to give a point to white supremacists? Are you trying to actually make them believe that they're right by saying that you shouldn't have rights because you're obviously too stupid to exercise themselves? Are you trying to group yourselves with people that lost their rights and are referred to as children because they're mentally unstable? Because that is a whole different issue with a whole bunch of people that are perfectly okay not being able to have their adult rights to life back because they have been deemed too mentally unstable at one point and all of their rights were reassigned to their parents. You don't want this. You don't want to be making this point, and it's very weird that you are making this point. Now, this guy's whole spiel was that getting to vote ballot is too difficult, and he wants to vote from his phone.
Age of technology, it should be easier to vote.
No doubt. It's like we call these devices smartphones, but yet I can't vote from it.
That would be like so easy to commit fraud with. You would actually need to scrap everyone having individual choice for having a smartphone to a point where government issues your smartphone, and it has to be a verified smartphone, and you can't have more than one because otherwise voting, you can cheat the vote. You can add extra votes in there. They would have to issue your smartphone, and it would have to be a government-controlled smartphone that unlocks based on probably your retina scan to make sure that it is you that is using the smartphone and not somebody else just casting your vote for you from your smartphone. You don't want that. You don't want that kind of government surveillance. Do you want to be labeled like an anarchist, labeled somebody that causes trouble for the government, and have your phone completely switched off? Would you like that kind of interference where, in order to make sure that a specific candidate is elected, we just give some technical issues to some of the government-issued smartphones that we have issued to some part of the demographic that we thought weren't gonna vote for us? That would create this whole load of problems that you just don't want to deal with. That is why we're still using the old paper method. That is why you go to a location and somebody verifies your identity. Presumably, at least. That is how it's supposed to work. So there is plenty of reasons why we can't utilize such excellent technology as smartphones in order to do elections. Doesn't work very well, okay? Lithuania is incorporating some technology into some assets of life that I wish more places unlocked, such as the fact that you have a smart ID card, which is you get a passport and you can take out an ID card. If you take out an ID card on top of that, and I have an ID card, if you are prescribed medicine or anything, it actually goes on your ID card. It goes on effectively what is you, what is scanned to be you in the system. So you go into a pharmacy and you just swipe the ID card. And they immediately know your prescription, they immediately know who you are because it's all on your ID card. They started putting a lot more on the person's person and personal information in order to get rid of a lot of paperism and get rid of a lot of non-automated systems. But I still wouldn't use a smartphone for that. Sorry, I wouldn't. I don't think that is a good idea. I don't think that is a good idea. And that has been the whole show. So, we the people, X more than a vote, talked about the fact that prisoners can't vote, and apparently that's a problem because most black people are prisoners, which is racist as all shit. That we should defund the police because all black people are criminals and therefore law enforcement bad, which is racist as all shit. That minorities do not exist and that it is just a word used to demean black people, therefore they shouldn't be given a minority status. That black on black crime is, I don't know, a fairy tale that shouldn't be focused on or reported on ever. That capitalism broke black people, therefore they want to be deprived of owning their own property and owning their own businesses and be forced to have all of that owned and assigned to them by the government that can take away that at any point. At that point, they're not going to be oppressed. That white people should give all of their money to black people. Thank you, Russ, for making that 10-minute segment. Then they had one point, which is the true voting suppression, which was brought to you by Jason Hayward, and I wish that he was the whole video, because I feel like he actually had a point to talk about, but he was given 10 minutes. Then we arrived at Jason Rose that decided that having jobs is racist, and that needing to know who you're voting for before you get to the ballot is racist. Now, we can infer from this that what they want is for all the candidacy to be stripped and for this to be a dictatorship, because you're gonna arrive at a faux ballot box and there's gonna be one person to elect, which is the person that was dictating your life for however many years beforehand and will be dictating your life for however many years from now on. That it would be your perfect election, I suppose, because then you wouldn't need to know who you're voting for. and then they would like to vote from their smartphone, which would open a whole different can of votes, a rather can of worms, and which would make the whole system really complex. And then they aired this whole thing at 12-year-old children, which wouldn't have same kind of level of intelligence, same kind of level of rationalizing these thoughts and looking at this kind of issue and talking about it, which would just accept it at face value. Yeah, suffice to say, I do not like this kind of initiate from Epic Games. I do not like this kind of thing being aired in Fortnite. I don't think that it's the right place for it to be aired, and I think that 40 out of 50 minutes, actually 50 out of 1 hour minutes, were complete drivel because majority of people did not have a point, or had a point that just comes off as incredibly racist. So that has been my overview of We the People X More Than a Vote. I am gonna link you to the good version of it, which is not being played through Fortnite, but rather is posted by Fortnite official YouTube account if you want to look at it yourself. This has been a sum up for you in case you don't want to look at it yourself. I see so many problems with it. I do not know why Fortnite is airing this. Honestly, I wouldn't know why they're airing anything political whatsoever, but that's just me. So anyways, thank you for watching. If you like my videos, please subscribe. I tend to bring gaming news every single day. Not all of them tend to be this grim and serious. We like to have fun because it is video games that we're talking about. It's just that a lot of these kind of people decided to invade video game spaces. So what can you do if not talk about it? So thank you for letting me express my opinion, and thank you for watching this video. Toodaloo.